And so it has been a year, a little bit over a year, when I showed you the Silktone amp, and I told you, and I've said it on many places, that it is indeed my favorite amp of all time. It does everything I need it to do, and it does everything I need it to do very well. I highly encourage you to watch that video first, then come back here, because now, people, the Silktone Parallel is out. The first one was the Silktone Amp. This one is the Silktone Parallel. He may not be great at naming things, but he is very good at building amps. My question today is this one better? Is it the same, or is it worse? And I'm going to be completely honest, just like I was in the first video. First video wasn't paid, this one wasn't paid either. In fact, that I paid for. That's a new one. I got to meet Charles at NAMM this year, at the beginning of the year in January. And we were online friends before that because I had done the Silktone video and stuff like that. So we were talking all the time. I had done a few of his pedals and all of that. But after we met in January, we became really good friends, and he let me in on this secret. And he said that, I can't wait for you to check this out. He was supposed to send me a loaner and then me send it back. And I really want to see what you think is better, which one you like better, the Parallel or that one. Now, you've heard this amp many times on this channel. I've had it since I think about March, so any video that you see in this setting, not in the other studio, any video that you see in this setting has been going through this amp. Anytime I say Silktone, Oxbox, let's get to it, and I'm here, it's this one. So you've heard it several times. Now we're obviously going to do a dedicated video for it here. So he sent me the loaner, I played it, and I got that same feeling that I got from the other amp. I've seen many amps since that. Well, it's been a year. I've seen many amps since, and I couldn't really replicate that Silktone feeling that I got. I'm not saying any of the other amps that I've done aren't as good. They're different things. There are different things. For example, like I'm going to get a lot of questions about it, so I might as well get this out of the way. What about the Victory Deputy? Aren't you in love with that amp? Yes, I am, absolutely, but that's more of a British thing. This is not. In its class, I said it in the first video, I'll say it again. In its class, nothing's going to beat it. I said that the last video, and you should go see the comments on that video. I got killed and murdered, and people told me, what about my Mesa Boogie? Cool, your Mesa Boogie's lovely. It really is. And I love the Mesa Boogie California, whatever, and the Fender this and the vintage Fender that. For me, I don't think there's anything better than Silktone. That is my honest opinion. So let's get on with this review. What have we got? What's changed? What's new? Is it the same amp, or is it just the same amp but louder? Charles listened to the public and they said that they're in love with the Silktone amp. They bought the Silktone amp and they love it. And it's the best thing they ever played, blah, blah, blah. Cool, but they wanted more. The other one was 12 watts. A lot of people wanted more. I'm not in the watt per dollar camp. Well, I can get a 100 watt amp for 500. This is not cheap, by the way. I can get a 100 watt amp for $1,000, $500, whatever it is. You can't do cost per watt. That's not how it works. Your 100 watt amp is not 100 times louder than a 1 watt amp. That's not how that works. But people wanted more power and more headroom. Cool, lovely. So the next logical progression is take the 12 watt and make it 25. I don't know what you need to do. Add a tube in there, is what I thought. Apparently, no, not really. You can't, because it's single-ended and single-ended this and single-ended that. I don't know what any of this means. All I know is it sounds incredible. So it gets the name Parallel because it's kind of like two single-ended things running in parallel, pushing it to the 25 watts that it is. It's a little more. There's no way it's 25 watts. I mean, he told me the Silktone Overdrive was an overdrive. Bullshit. It was not an overdrive. It was a distortion plus. So along with not being able to properly name things, he also doesn't know how to count. So on paper, it's 25 watts, but it is much more loud, much louder, much more powerful than the other one. Not really powerful in the sense of, oh my God, but it's got more bass and more fullness, if you will. Now, I've called the previous one perfect. Where does this one sit? Also perfect, but in its own thing. So I ended up buying the amp. I didn't end up sending this. I was supposed to send this back. I ended up calling him and saying, listen, I'm going to keep this amp. So I don't know how you want to do this. To me, they are two very different things with very similar profiles or flavors, if you will. This one does a little bit more. Let me show you what we've got. just like the Silktone amp, we start with a volume knob, and that's going to be pretty much your master volume. When we move a little bit to the right, you see there's an extra switch. Before, we only had the chiffon and the raw silk. The chiffon is pretty much the classic amp with the tone stack and everything in it, like the bass, mid, treble. That's what tone stack is. And raw silk was just direct, and it was in your face. Well, now in addition, we have another switch called mode switch. You have mode 1 and mode 2. We'll get to that in a second. The chiffon and raw silk switch now has a bright switch, if you will. There's a sun there, and it just adds a little bit more presence. This is my favorite setting so far, keeping it on that bright switch. And from here on out, it's gonna be pretty much identical to the old one. You got bass, middle, treble, dwell, and mix, and you've got your built-in attenuator. He kept it, thank God that he did. Amp goes from 25 watts, plenty of power, plenty of volume, all the way down to 1 watt. A real 1 watt where it keeps its power, but the volume goes down. The tone remains exactly the same, but the volume goes down, meaning you can push the heck out of this amp in the middle of the night. Mode 1 is indeed the Silktone amp. It is the closest I could get anything in the world to sound like my absolute favorite amp of all time, the Silktone amp. It was mode 1, chiffon, and all my settings the same, and it pretty much sounded almost identical to my Silktone amp. Mode 2 takes away the negative feedback. I have no idea what that means. What is negative feedback? Is this when you get 1 star on a Google review? But it takes away all the negative feedback. What I hear, fancy schmancy words, I don't care. What I hear is it opens up the amp even more in a way where harmonics are so rich, they are so full, everything sounds so full, and the whole room is filled with your guitar, and you're running just 1 amp. Like, it's not like a stereo thing, but it's so full. Match that with the raw silk and game over. Another different thing from the original amp is that it now has a pine cab. That helps with the mids a little bit, that helps balance everything out, even everything out. I never had a problem with the old one. I never had a single issue with the old one. Zero. The old one is a perfect amp. It is the perfect amp. This one is fine-tuned, has more power, has an extra mode, has that bright switch, and has 2 KT66s now. Those really big bottle tubes. I'm gonna talk for 2 more seconds, then I'm gonna shut up and I'm gonna play. What is why did I keep, if they are so similar, why did I keep both? Because I don't think they are that similar. I don't think they are that similar. They're not wildly different, but they're definitely not identical. Can I get more sounds out of this than with the other one? Yes. Does this mean I need to replace the other one? No, because the other one still has that thing. It has that thing that I love. And it has served me so well on YouTube. This is my livelihood. So it has served me so well on YouTube. When I want to demo a pedal, I want to run it through the best thing I've got. I want to give it the best shot. I want to give that pedal, I want to give that company, that small business, that whatever, their best shot. And their best shot is for me to play a proper guitar, like with a good setup, a nice guitar, a proper amp, and then let the pedal do whatever it needs to do. So I now have 2 Silktone amps, and this one sits like, they're like this. They are like this, man. I just don't know which one I like better, and I wish I had that answer for you. And I wish I had that answer for Charles from Silktone, because he's been asking me for 6 months now. I don't know. I don't know. Some days I like this one better, some days I like this one better. Nothing else compares. Nothing else compares. And now it is my great joy to give you what is now a coin tagline, I guess. I see it in the comments all the time. Silktone Oxbox, let's get to it. I have nothing in my hands because the amp is indeed heavy. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you have now heard the Silktone Parallel. This amp will forever live in this setting, and when I do the other, mostly pedal videos and stuff like that, I've moved to another studio that has the original Silktone amp. You will always and forever see 99% of this channel, everything you're gonna hear is gonna be going through the Silktone amp. Unless I'm doing an amp review, that would be weird. I wanna address something that came up a lot in the previous video. This is not cheap. It's not meant to be cheap. This is boutique, like the upper echelon of boutique. I think it's worth it. I cannot make that decision for you. A lot of people thought the first one was worth it as well. They sold out. They sold out for a while. And then he had a waiting list. And I think this one has already sold. This one hasn't been properly announced yet, if you will. But he's, I think, pre-sold. He has a waiting list already, is what I'm trying to say. I don't know if Silktone has a cult following for Charles. I don't know if there's a cult following for Charles, but good products are good products, man. That doesn't mean your Boss Katana is garbage. Absolutely not. I love the Boss Katana. I love the Mesa whatever. I love my Fender, even though I sold it because of this amp, but let's not get into that. I love my Fender amps and all of that. And my Victories, and this has a thing that no other amp has. But the amount of work and parts and labors that goes into making two single-ended running in parallel, this and that, he explained it to me. It's extremely, it's not like he's making these for $300 and selling them for whatever. A lot is going into it. And not a single person that has bought it from other videos, my previous video, online, whatever, Charles's Instagram, any of that. None of the people have said a single complaint. I know I haven't, and I'm not even getting paid for this. I paid to do this damn video. What the fuck? If this was your first Small Business Tuesday, welcome. If it's not, welcome back. It has been an honor and a joy to have Silktone as a part of this channel for the past year. We've been on YouTube for 4 years. One of them has had Silktone really predominantly in it because it truly made the channel better. I know that sounds stupid. It's just an inanimate object. It's an amp. Plug your guitar into it, bro. I get it. But it's just, it has really elevated the channel to another level when it comes to audio quality and stuff like that. When it comes to visuals, that has been me. Look at me. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for joining me. Please consider liking, sharing, subscribing. Write me a comment about the helicopter that's going above the house right now. Are they here after me? Are they after my Silktones? I have 2 now. They are my prized possessions. Check these amps out because and this is a personal opinion and I think it's fact, but that's how personal opinions work. I don't think there's anything at that level because that is the best sounding amp that I've ever played through. The original and that one, the amp and the Parallel. They're just a little bit different, and I wish I could tell you which one I like more. I have been Buddy Blues. You have been the people of the blues. Until next time, thank you for watching.